Ben Shapiro, transgender ism. What? Oh yeah, here, hold on. Let's. I definitely want to see. All right. All right, let's see it.
How do you say that some people don't have privilege when you basically just said that trans people aren't valid? They're not a thing. They're just girls pretending to be boys or boys pretending to be girls.
Okay.
Like, okay.
Oh, someone's excited. Okay.
Sex is biological, but gender is a completely different thing.
No, gender is not disconnected from sex. So.
Okay, cool. So basically, in the video, we're going to be opening up. I'm not going to make this into a clip because like the video this week is going to be essentially responding to this. Ben is saying that gender and sex are the same thing here. And we're gonna, and obviously the overwhelming academic consensus is that this is not right. So Ben is just wrong right off the bat. This is also I don't know, this is the reason why you have to be careful with where you pick your forum. Because obviously he's playing to an audience that like, Ben is objectively wrong. Ben is above all consensus. Yeah, exactly. But like, this is the reason why it's very dangerous to like pick particular forums. Because like, yeah, of course he's gonna say what he's gonna say completely unchallenged, and people are gonna laugh and agree with him because it's a forum that already agrees with him.
Completely disconnected, but it's still a cultural thing. It's still from society. It's
okay. No, it is not in the mind. Okay, you're not a man if you think you're a man, and it is.
I mean, this isn't right either. Like, yeah, this has to go with like a subjective analysis of gender. If you believe yourself to be something, if you believe yourself to be a gender identity, then subjectively you are that gender identity. Now there's discussion about whether or not objectively you are, depending on like what you're presenting to society and what society is reciprocating back to you. But like, yeah, in a subjective sense, yeah, that totally works.
I didn't say pretending, or if I did, I shouldn't have said pretending. Let me amend.
You said playing.
Okay, I said a boy who thinks he's a girl. That's the usual phraseology I use. Not playing. I usually say a boy who thinks he's a girl or a girl who thinks he's a boy, which is technically.
I'm surprised I actually haven't watched this video yet. This is crazy that it's taken me like this long to get to this. I don't know. Yeah, it's just kind of weird thinking that like this is like the argument that destroyed the online internet.
What we're talking about here. As far as the actual psychological issues at play, it used to be called gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder. Now they call it gender dysphoria.
I mean, no, those are very different. I mean, gender dysphoria is something that, yeah, like trans people face, but like gender identity disorder used to be just like the category of like calling people trans at all, and gender dysphoria is more like the articulable feeling that trans people face when there's like a discomfort between their gender identity and the way that society treats them if they are different, or the way that they see themselves if the way they see themselves is different from how they believe themselves to be. Yeah. I don't know. This is like super simple stuff. RGR destroying transphobia everywhere it rears its ugly head. I mean, like, listen, this isn't. These aren't like difficult arguments to argue around. I don't know. Maybe I put in too much work into this.
The idea that sex or gender are malleable is not true.
It's not saying that they're malleable. I mean, like in the sense that they are, right? But it's more that like they're societally constructed, which doesn't make them not real. I mean, like money is real and money is societally constructed, right? Like the reason that money has value is because we as a society decide to give money value, right? Like here, literally all that, like this is the exact same thing, right? Like gender takes on meaning because we as a society give it meaning, right? What it means to be a woman, at least in the objective sense, takes on meaning because we as a society give it that meaning, whatever it is. Same for being a man or some other gender, right? In whose preferred terminology, gender incongruence, which they don't even consider a mental disorder at this point. Oh, yeah. Here, I'll pin that. God damn it. But yeah, like, no, I think that Ben basically portrays this like, oh, you're just making up making up your gender, but it's like, no, like no one's making up their gender. It's what they are, right? Just that a lot of it is manifested like socially. Comrade, people take this argument so seriously that it's worth time in that sense. I mean, yeah, I guess that's true.
Okay, and I'm not denying your humanity if you're a transgender person. I am saying
You kind of are, though. Like, let's be real. If you're looking at someone, you're telling them you're not who you say you are, you're kind of denying their humanity, right? Like, let's be completely fucking real, all right? If you're looking at someone and honestly, and like telling them you're not who you are telling me you are, and you just expect that person to look at you and be like, oh yes, thank you, Ben. No, that's completely reasonable expression. I have had my eyes illuminated or opened up and before they were shut. No, that's denying them their humanity. Yeah.
saying that you are not the sex to which you claim to be. You're still a human.
And it's not about saying that you are the sex. Again, this is like a fundamental misconstruction because like Ben is conflating sex and gender. Hey, Lefty Orbiter, thanks for the tier 1 gifted sub. The Casper the Lord of Dark. I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, like, this is just like a fundamental misconstruence between what gender and sex are, right? Like, people aren't saying that, like, my sex is something else I identify as. They're saying that their gender is. Or that their gender is something that is different from what they were assigned themselves at birth, right? Like, this fundamentally has to do with, like, a misunderstanding of what the difference between them are, which you already kind of acknowledged at the forefront. But yeah, like the person who he's talking to doesn't seem to really be like as in the know about it, so I don't expect that they're going to call him out on this.
Human being, and you're a human being with an issue.
You go by Chuck, but your birth certificate says Charles. Yeah, I know, right?
That I wish you Godspeed in dealing with in whatever.
I pray for you. I am so fucking here for you. Like I am so fucking here for you. That's literally what this is. This is literally just like I'm gonna take a giant steamy shit on you, but like thoughts and prayers. Yeah, I don't know. It just feels very underhanded and like disingenuous.
Way you see fit. But if you are going to dictate to me that I'm supposed to pretend,
It's not about you supposed to pretend. It's about you literally acknowledging what everyone else acknowledges, right? If I go out into society, like people treat me as a woman. I am seen as a woman. In order for you to treat me as not a woman, you literally have to be the person pretending. You are the one pretending, Ben Shapiro, that I am not a woman in that sense. Because literally everyone else is on the same page except for you, right? So don't say that like, oh, I'm not going to pretend that someone isn't a woman is a woman when they clearly aren't. You're literally doing the thing where you're trying to pretend that someone isn't a woman when they clearly are, right? So yeah, all of this is just posturing. Is this supposed to be like the golden boy of the left or of the right? Like, fuck me.
That men are women and women are men. No. My answer is no. I'm not going to modify basic biology because it threatens your subjective sense of.
And again, like, and also it's not basic biology. Like, fuck me. Like, all the research that we're doing is showing that like, biology is so fucking complex in regards to like sex or biological sex that even if you try to use that as a basis for trying to have like a clear definition of what defines a male or a female, that even that falls through like 99.9% of the time, right? And like, and so here, right? No, this is just like completely conflating sex and gender. Like, that's the only way that this argument works is if he makes them out to be like, if A, he makes them out to be the same thing, and B, if he sells the argument to you that in order for you to that like basically that biological sex is on the strict binary, right? Like that's the only way that it works is that gender and sex are the same and sex is strictly binary, and both of those are not true.
Of what you are.
Okay, but you're still saying these kids should like not be accepted because they don't really fit in either place. They can't just like.
I'm saying that the Boy Scouts have a standard. You must be a biological boy to be a Boy Scout. You have to be a boy to be a Boy Scout.
I feel like most of this is just going to be like inflation of sex and gender and bad assumptions about gender or about sex. Like that's what it's going to be. Feminist trans men narrative internalized misogyny. Discusses the idea that trans men are just women who traumatize against their gender. All right, I'll hold on to it. Boop. Ben Shapiro. That's a good meme. That's a good meme.
In the name Boy Scouts.
Okay, now you see what he did there? This is exactly the thing that we talked about at the beginning, where literally he isn't like citing to any authority. He isn't like making any kind of empiric argument. All he's doing is he's relying on bad premises, like built one on top of each other, and he just like is able to make like a quippy remark, and suddenly the crowd, which is already predisposed to agree with him, is going to applaud for him to make it look like he's won when he hasn't really proven anything to his point. Right? Like that's what's happened. This is the reason why Ben Shapiro looks like a smart boyo, is because he just knows how to be able to like tailor his audience and pick his opponents. He's a good performer for his audience. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Because this is a very
See, like, she's barely like, the guy is standing there like ready to take away the microphone like whenever things get like dicey, right? Like, even in the situation where she is able to make like a pretty decent point, and I don't know, like, it doesn't seem like, I don't expect her to go out and like make any like amazing arguments, given she hasn't like called out any of the the inconsistencies up until this point. Like, yeah, like he has every advantage to this kind of an argument, or this kind of a situation. Yeah, don't speculate as to whether or not he has autism. That's not good. Very cringe. Don't do it.
Because for all of human history, boy meant boy and girl meant girl. Boy did not.
We literally just watched a SciShow video about how that's not entirely the case, right? And also there's like plenty of instances throughout history of like third gender or like gender queer like people in various cultures, right? Like, this is, and also like the fact that gender has taken on so many different expressions in every different like part of history, right? Like, for him to say, oh, throughout all of history, boy meant boy and girl meant girl, like, no, abso-fucking-lutely not. Or at least definitely not in the way that he's making it out to be, right? Like, what it's meant to be like a man and a woman has changed so much over time, and there's been other categories that don't even fit within like those understandings, that he's just making this out to be like an established fact when it just isn't.
Not mean girl. And if I call you a moose, are you suddenly?
I'm biologically a cat girl.
A moose? Okay, if I redefine our terms.
Okay, yeah, and this is like the was it? It's not the Mott and Bailey, but effectively it's, I mean, like it's just like it's just like an incongruable analysis, right? Like, it's basically saying that like, oh yeah, gender is the same as identifying as like, gender is the same thing as identifying as like an animal, or as like some nebulous third thing. Like, it's the attack helicopter meme, right? But there's a difference between that, saying that gender and sex are different, and saying that someone whose gender and sex are the same can identify as an animal or an attack helicopter or whatever, right? Like, one is based in like descriptive, empirically observable reality, and the other one is like obviously an overstate, like crazy claim meant to just make the opposition look stupid, when in fact it's a straw man, right? Like, it doesn't represent the other side's argument like reasonably, even if she's not catching like the distinction here, right? OMG, is this the end of Western civilization? Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, like, there's a difference between saying that sex and gender are different, and like distinguishable from one another, and saying that someone can identify as an animal, right? I mean, like, I'm saying this, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like with my community, like, this is a really simple thing to understand, but like, it's crazy to me that like everyone in this room doesn't get this. I don't know. I don't know what to ascribe to that. It's just like a consequence of picking the venue, both of like making sure that most of the people in the room are conservative, and also that like the people who are coming up to ask you questions probably don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, it's like the ABCs.
No, yes, that's right. Men and women are a completely different thing. This is true. Have you ever met a man or a woman? They're completely different.
Okay, so now he's just gonna make jokes and not actual arguments. Like, okay.
You say you're a cat. It's not a thing. It's genders. It's not.
This is actually like a halfway decent response. It's like, listen, people aren't going, like, here's like the actual response, or here, not like the actual response, but like the more, the like better phrased response to this is saying like, listen, okay, in order for like your analogy to hold up true, then you would expect that there would be people going around like identifying as cats or identifying as attack helicopters, when that's just like not the case, right? I think he also, this might be like the instance where he makes like the age, like the identifying as age, but like, listen, Ben, like, hold on. Listen, Ben, when the trans age movement starts getting traction and there are like hundreds of thousands of people like asking for trans age rights, then yeah, we'll totally get back to you about the validity of this analogy. But like, the fact of the matter is, age and identifying as a cat is very different from having a gender identity that's different from the one assigned at birth. One is actually supported by empirical evidence and the majority of the scientific community, and the other is just a weird straw man hypothetical that you've constructed to try and make your the opponents sound unreasonable. Like that's the difference. Yeah. Gender is a category, serious non-binary gender identities seem to have some manner of both, sometimes kind of or neither, in reference to masculinity or femininity. That's all. Yeah.
Okay, why is that? I don't understand. Why? Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, I won't ask you how old. I will ask you how old you are. Okay, because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So.
I'm 22, so I'm probably.
I mean, is it? I don't know. This is just kind of like condescending. I don't know. I feel like appeals to like how old someone is generally comes off as kind of like condescending, like up to the point where they're like, I don't know. If you're like, maybe like, I don't know, like this is always gonna be like a very like kind of a like a subjective sort of analysis, but like, I don't know, if you're like 15 or younger and you're like a white nationalist, I probably feel like that's a little bit too young to be a white nationalist. But otherwise, like, I don't know, I think that Ben should reasonably be able to tell that this person is old enough to be able to like have an informed opinion on this.
Naive, right?
Big Ben debating a 22-year-old with no debate experience. Well, yeah, that's it, right? I mean, like, while she is not a child, there is a difference between someone like a 22-year-old, like either like someone in college debating someone who's a Harvard grad with like years of like experience with like a Harvard grad law or lawyer with years of media training, right? Equivocation fallacy. His definitions of gender and species are considered to have the same definition or meaning. Yep, that's basically it. Or no, that is it.
No, why aren't you 60?
Oh, yep. Here it is. Yeah, it's yeah, you're equating gender and age. Yeah, it's literally either equivocation fallacy or defendant's fallacy when you're being when or where you are being ambiguous with your definition and implicitly assuming a given definition. Yeah, that's also probably true.
Why aren't you 60? And why can't you identify as 60? What is the problem with you identifying as 60?
Because age and gender are different. Amazing. Fam, I feel bad for Ben. I don't know. Maybe I put way too much time into researching this shit.
It's not the same as gender. You can't just.
You're right.
Hey, there you go. You got to the argument. Now what's Ben's response?
Age is significantly less important than gender.
What? How is it less important than gender? There's no like importance of gender versus age. They're just kind of descriptive qualities about you. What? There's no reason that one is more or less important. Okay, Ben, let's hear the explanation.
You can't magically change your gender. You can't magically change your sex.
It's not about magically changing your gender. It's about objectively it's either about like believing yourself to be a gender, which is an intrinsic quality, or manifesting your gender to society and society treating you like that gender, which is social construction, which is something which everyone overwhelmingly agrees on. It's not like any kind of magical change. I mean, I don't know. Like HRT is kind of magical. I'll give him that. Like HRT is kind of cool. And then to the whole conversation about sex, like that is a lot more complicated than he's making it out to be. And yeah, like all this is just reducing it down and trying to like posture himself to make him like all of it is just posturing at this point, right? HRT is poggers. HRT is pretty poggers.
You can't magically change your age.
You can still legally change it.
Yeah, no one is saying that you can. This is a false equivalency. Yeah. Like, yeah.
People recognize
You can't legally change your age, by the way.
Obviously, you can change your name, you can change your sex, you can change your identity.
Just because you can do things legally doesn't mean that they are correct biologically. You could do lots of things in the
Half true. Just because something is true legally doesn't mean that necessarily reflects like a biological reality. But also, he's still trying to make this a conversation about biology when it's not. Like, it's not. I'm sorry. Like, he keeps trying to make it out to be like, oh, because like, you know, gender and sex are the same things, then therefore. But they're not the same thing. They're not. And every time that you try to assert that, you're categorically wrong. Biology is not on this side. Yeah, that's also true.
in the past that were incorrect biologically and correct legally. For a long period of time in the United States, sterilization of the mentally ill took place. That didn't make it okay. Skinner versus...
Yeah, because letting trans people identify as the gender that they are is definitely the same thing as fucking sterilization or forced sterilization. Okay, Ben. Sure. Those are 100% absolutely fully equivalent. And if someone is going to come at me in the comments and be like, oh, but Riley, if people go on HRT, well, then they might end up being sterilized. And it's like, yeah, sure, because those are totally equivalent, because forced sterilization is 100% equivalent with consensual, agreed upon medical procedures. Yeah, get the fuck out of here. I see you. I see you. I see you. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Oklahoma. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes
Also, fuck it. This is a video at this point. Welcome to the comments.
wrote the decision.
Right. I still don't understand why you're accepting these children that have gender.
It's not a matter of open-minded and accepting. I want them to get treatment that they see fit, but that's not involving me. The idea behind the trans...
Again, like this is all trying to posture it as like, oh, I definitely don't hate them. Oh, I definitely respect them. Listen, if Ben actually felt that way, if he really felt that way, then like after he's been confronted, because you know he's been confronted with this evidence. I'm not saying anything to him that hasn't been told to him before, right? If he actually sincerely felt this way about trans people, he would have changed his mind about trans people years ago when he was confronted with the overwhelming evidence that he is fucking wrong. This is just bullshit. I don't know. I tend to think that he's a bad faith actor. I can't think that someone as smart as him would actually believe this.
Transgender movement as a civil rights movement is the idea that all of their problems would just go away if I would pretend that they were the sex to which they claim.
This is I think it's called a reductio. Basically it's the idea like, oh, well, if what they want is for, you know, if what they want is for all of their problems to go away by virtue of me calling them the gender that they are, then that's impossible, because just me calling them the gender that they are will make all their problems go away. Yeah, a fucking course being gendered correctly isn't gonna, like, make everything in our lives better. That's not what people are asking for. They're just asking to be treated with the same basic decency that everyone else is treated with. Everyone else gets to be gendered correctly. Everyone else gets to be regarded for who they are in society. Trans people deserve the same. Period. Like that's it. That's it. That's all that there is to it. They just want to be treated, we just want to be treated categorically the same as everyone else. And yeah, like that isn't going to solve like everything in our lives, you know? But it's going to make it a little bit easier, considering that we face a lot of discrimination by virtue of the fact that people treat us categorically different. And in negative ways. A lot of negative ways, like you're doing, Benji Boy Shapiro, that makes it categorically harder for us to live the same kind of fulfilling lives as everyone else. I respect trans people. I just constantly misgender them. Yeah, like when he had the interview with the one woman, like the one that made them famous initially. Like, do you think that he actually honestly fucking respected her? That he actually honestly wanted what was fucking best for her? No, absolutely not. He knew exactly what he was doing. All right? I don't want anyone to walk away from this conversation and think that this fucking guy cares about me or any other trans person. He fucking doesn't. He's just in it for the grift.
To which they claim membership. That's nonsense. The transgender suicide rate is 40%.
You want to know why that is? You want to know why that is? I don't know why people feel like this is a great point to bring up, because also, like, it's really just fucking terrible to talk about suicide. But, like, categorically, if Ben would look at fucking any study ever on this subject, he would know that most of the reason why there's, like, a higher trans suicide rate is because of social issues. It's because, yeah, a lot of trans people come from really fucking shitty backgrounds where they either have really unaffirming parents or really, or, like, are just or are otherwise like completely disavowed by their families. A lot of trans people end up being homeless at very young ages, or don't have a lot of friends because, yeah, it's really hard to be able to make friends when you're trans in this society. It can be very hard to access like decent medical care. Like, there's a ton of reasons that don't actually have to do with being trans as to why trans people might be more prone to suicide. That has nothing to do with the fact that they're trans. Or like the like it has nothing to do with any intrinsic quality of being trans, right? But here he's framing it like it is, right? He's like, oh, just by virtue of some quality being trans, well, therefore, you know, the trans suicide rate is 40%, right? When that is incredibly reductive. And like, let's be real, Ben is also playing into the same culture, which causes higher trans suicide rate. Like, Ben right here is causing that suicide, or is like playing into the reasons why the suicide rate is as high as it is. So again, I don't want him sitting here acting like he's able to be on such a high horse pedestal when he's literally contributing to the same culture that's bringing about the problem that he is citing as evidence in his argument.
It is 40%. And according to the
Why? All right, hold on. Maybe she's going to bring it up. Hold on. Let's see it. Let's see it.
Anderson School at UCLA, it makes no difference. There's a study that came out last year. It makes no difference, virtually no difference, statistically speaking, as to whether people recognize you as a transgender person or not, which suggests there's a very high comorbidity between transgenderism, whatever that mental state may be, and suicidality. That has.
It's literally all social factors. Yeah, this is the thing, is that like he has enough access to evidence that I can't think that he hasn't seen any of the other evidence, because like the academic consensus on like trans issues are like overwhelmingly in the favor of, you know, that trans people, I mean, like they go overwhelmingly against his position. So it's very hard for me to think that he just like doesn't happen to see them. Like he has to see them and reject them. Yeah, and transgenderism, I know, right? Like anyone who uses that terminology, yeah, like it's gonna be it raises some eyebrows just on its own.
Has nothing to do with how society treats
you. Do you think it could be because of they're bullied at school?
No, I don't think that. I do not think that the discrepancy. I do not.
What? Are you serious? Holy shit. Do you think it's not because they're bullied at school? No, I definitely don't think that has anything to do with it. Like, are you fucking serious, Ben? You don't think that the fact that trans people are treated shitty in culture, the same culture that you feed into, has nothing to do with that suicide rate? Are you goddamn kidding me? Well, you'll be nice to know. It'll be good for you to know that that's like overwhelmingly what every single study on the matter shows. For people who are watching later, this wasn't supposed to be a segment. I have a research doc. I'm just gonna link it in the video, and you can go fact check me there before you type in the comments, but Riley didn't show any of the specific sources. If you want to, you can go there, or you can fucking come on here and debate me about it.
I don't think the discrepancy, first of all, I'm against bullying of any sort, okay? The idea that somebody would beat somebody up is terrible, okay? As somebody who's viciously bullied in high school, I'm not a fan of bullying. But the idea that the normal suicide rate across the United States is 4%. The suicide rate in the transgender community is 40%. The idea that 36% more transgender people are committing suicide because people are mean to them is ridiculous.
Because the bullying that trans people face and the bullying that cis people face are definitely 100% equivalent. And also, this statistic doesn't account for any other negative way that trans people are treated by virtue of the fact that they're trans. Yeah, those are totally equivalent, Ben. Those are 100% completely 100% equivalent. People might not like this, but I mean, like, this is like a consequence of. Ooh, I'm not sure if I want to say the word. I feel the people. I feel the reactionaries. I feel the soy boy conservatives getting ready to in chat. But I'm gonna say it anyway. This is a consequence of his privilege, right? Like, let's be perfectly real. Like, he wouldn't, like, he can't possibly comprehend what it's like to be a trans person in that kind of a social setting. So, of course, he's not going to he's not going to be able to empathize with us or be able to understand that there's a difference categorically between how he has been treated in school or in his anecdotal personal life versus how other trans people have been treated. Right? I'm gonna say it. It's totally, yeah. I just dropped the P word. I know. I feel the comment. I feel the sweaty soy boy conservatives typing vigorously the rees in the comment section once the video goes back up. I feel it happening right now. And yeah, go ahead and do it. It brings me joy. It brings me joy to know that I'm right. But yeah, like, that's the reason why he probably can't even comprehend this difference.
It's not true, and it's not backed by any science that anyone can cite.
What? Are you serious? Hold on. No. Hold the fucking phone. Hold the fucking phone. Not backed by any evidence that anyone is able to cite. Are you goddamn serious? All right, then. You know what? I said I wasn't going to bring it out. Fine. You know what? Fucking fine. What are the causes of high trans suicide rates and other mental health issues? Is it purely by virtue of the fact that they're trans? Cool. Let's go through some fucking academic consensus. Hey, Riley, 40% of homeless children are LGBT, and that is with the lack of stats on trans kids. Maybe the suicide rates includes kids being literally kicked out of their homes. Very possible. But yeah, let's go through some. Oh my God, there's so much here. All right, Ben. You said that no one is able to cite you any academic consensus on this issue or why trans suicide rates are the way that they are. Let's talk about some hard, citable academic consensus. According to the American Psychological Association, just casually, the highest authority in America on like psychological issues, discrimination and prejudice against people based on their actual or perceived gender identity or expression detrimentally affects psychological, physical, social, and economic well-being. And that's also based on like all these fucking studies. Additionally, the American Psychoanalytic Association claims that bias against individuals based on actual or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression negatively affects mental health, contributing to an enduring sense of stigma and pervasive self-criticism through the internalization of such prejudice. The APA says that gender and sexual orientation diverse children and adolescents who are victimized in school are at an increased risk for mental health problems, suicidal ideation and attempts, substance use, high-risk sexual activity, and poor academic outcomes such as high levels of absenteeism, low grade point averages, and low interest in pursuing post-secondary education. Interesting. Benny Boyo, Benny Palo. Wow, that really, that seems to go directly against everything that you've said. That's so fucking weird, isn't it? The APA also says that minority stress is recognized as a primary mechanism through which notable the burden of stigma and discrimination affects minority persons' health and well-being and generates health disparities. Additionally, in a systematic literature review of all peer-reviewed articles published in English between 1991 and June 2017 that assesses the effect of gender transition on transgender well-being, Cornell University found that transgender individuals, particularly those who cannot access treatment for gender dysphoria, or who encounter unsupportive social environments are more likely than the general population to experience challenges such as depression, anxiety, suicidality, and minority stress. While gender transition can mitigate these challenges, the health and well-being of transgender people can be harmed by stigmatizing and discriminatory treatment. Hey, Ben, do you think that you're stigmatizing trans people here? Do you think that's exactly what you're doing right now? Weird, huh? Additionally, in a broad international study of trans suicide rate published in the U.S. Library of Medicine National Institutes of Health, researchers found that gender-based victimization, discrimination, bullying, violence, and being rejected by the family and public by the family, friends, community, harassment by intimate partner, family members, police and public, discrimination and ill treatment at healthcare system are the major risk factors that influence the suicidal behavior among transgender persons. Interesting. The main, where is that? Are the major risk factors that influence suicidal behavior. We know that they're the major ones. Another study had published in the U.S. Library of Medicine National Institutes of Health found that a series of simultaneous multiple regressions found that harassment/rejection discrimination was a unique positive predictor of mental health symptoms and suicidal ideation, with depression positively predicting suicidal ideation. The study concluded that helping trans individuals cope with harassment and rejection, particularly by drawing on social support, may promote better health, which could help reduce suicidality in this population. Additionally, in another study by UCLA, researchers found that transgender respondents who experienced discrimination or who were a victim of violence were more likely to report suicidal thoughts and attempts. They also found that respondents who experienced family rejection were also more likely to report attempting suicide, and that access to gender-affirming medical care is associated with a lower prevalence of suicidal thoughts and attempts. Additionally, according to a study published in the U.S. Library of Medicine National Institutes of Health of surveyed trans people, offensive treatment during the past 3 months and lifetime exposure to trans-related violence were significantly associated with suicidality. Less satisfaction with contacts with friends and acquaintances and with one's own psychological well-being were associated with suicidal ideation in the past 12 months, and lack of practical support was associated with lifetime suicide attempts. And additionally, according to a study published in the Journal for LGBT Health, 42.3% of a sample reported suicide attempt and 26.3% reported misusing drugs or alcohol to cope with transgender-related discrimination. After controlling for age, race, ethnicity, sex assigned at birth, binary gender identification, income, education, and employment status, family rejection was associated with increased odds of both behaviors. Odds increased significantly with increasing levels of family rejection. The analysis of all of this academic consensus is that trans suicide rates are exclusively caused by social factors and circumstances according to the prevailing academic literature, and therefore trans people do not commit suicide purely by virtue of the fact that they are trans, as much as you might want to think it is, Ben. So there you go, Ben. Hey, I understand maybe you just haven't seen any of this evidence before. It's kind of weird that there's just like so much of it out there and you think that no one is able to cite you any citable authority that's able to back up this claim that suicide is caused largely by social factors. Oh no, Ben. Just kind of weird. No. So yeah, interesting.
It is pure conjecture. In fact, it's not even true.
Pure conjecture. Can you get a load of this guy? Can you get a load of this fucking guy? Holy shit.
The bullying causes suicide, according to a lot of studies. For example, in the black community, where the idea is supposedly that America is a racist society, blacks are bullied.
Also, how do you respond to define a woman? Woman's gender identity. There you go.
A lot. Okay, in the black community has significantly lower suicide rates than in the white community.
What's this? This is just like a non sequitur. Doesn't really matter. Like there's overwhelming evidence that shows like why the trans suicide rate is as high as it is. Like this is not relevant.
In fact, in third world countries, the suicide rate is significantly lower than in first world countries. Suicide actually seems to be a privilege of the upper classes.
This is literally just not relevant.
If you actually look at it from a financial perspective. So the idea that suicidality is directly a result of people like me saying, no, men are not women and women are not men, it's
Except it's not that. Because we're not saying that women aren't women and men aren't men. You're the one that's saying that women are not women and men are not men. When you look at me and you say, you are not a woman, you're the one doing that. You're the one literally trying to tell a woman that she's not a woman, right? That's all, like, that's you. You are the one doing the thing that you're being critical of. He says supposedly America has a racist society. Not even the point there. Not even the point, but there's a lot to unpack there. Oh, wow, I didn't even catch that. Yeah, I'm focusing on the trans stuff. Wow. But yeah, like Ben, like to say that, like to reduce down what he's doing to like as simple as, oh, I'm just pointing out a logical fallacy. No, not only are you wrong, but you're using like bad logic to just harass trans people on like a categorical scale, and to spread like the same idea, the same bad logic that you use to harass trans people on an individual level among the entire population of people who listen to you. Yeah.
Not true. It's also...
So you think it doesn't impact their identity at all, or their depression, or how they feel about themselves?
I think the idea that you're going to sacrifice the entire society's proper definition of sex because...
The entire society's proper definition of sex. First of all, even if most people believe in like a strictly binary view of sex, that doesn't make it correct, right? Like just because most people happen to believe in something doesn't automatically make it correct. That just means that's what most people believe. If most people believe in, I don't know, I don't want to be like too mean to like Christians, and technically I am religious, so I don't want to be like too mean about this. If like everyone in society believes in a flying spaghetti monster in the sky, that doesn't mean that like that is true. You know, that doesn't mean that's like an empirically accurate view of the world. All that means is that most people believe in that thing. But like the fact of the matter is, we know a lot more about sex. First of all, we know that sex is different from gender, right? We know that gender is distinguishable from sex, and gender is how you determine whether or not someone is a man or a woman or some other gender. And we also know that biological sex is not binary and is a lot more complicated than he makes it out to be, right? So yeah, this is all just posturing.
Because you think that there is in legal terms, somebody with an eggshell skull, meaning that somebody who has a pre-existing condition that makes them more susceptible to criticism, that is not a...
It's not criticism. It's literally attacking their gender identity. I don't know. I can't. It's very hard for me to believe that he's acting in good faith. I don't know. Maybe this is also just like his privilege showing, in that like he can't possibly understand what it's like to be someone with a gender identity that most people are like critical of, and so he can't understand what it's like to be constantly misgendered in like a way where it would like substantively affect him. But either way, he's just kind of being a shitty and incorrect person here.
Way to run a society. You can't sacrifice truth because some people are going to actually suffer because of the truth.
Except, Ben, you're constantly like making this into a statement about whether or not someone is about whether or not you're correcting someone for being wrong. But you're not right here. You're not. You're assuming yourself to be correct when you're just not. I'm sorry. Like, that's like the fundamental flaw here in all of this. You're like, oh, because I'm correct, I'm just like, I cannot be harmed for possibly illuminating the poor people, the poor mistaken people who I'm trying to help here. But like, Ben, you're just categorically wrong on all of these issues. Like, all of them.
Plus, there's no evidence whatsoever that the suicide rate would go down in the transgender community in any marked way if people just started pretending that men were women and women were men.
Again, the bad posturing. We talked about this earlier. If he's just going to keep repeating the same points, I'm going to start speeding this up. But I mean, yeah, all the academic consensus shows that like the majority of like trans people's suicide rates is caused by social factors. So yeah, like taking that evidence that we have, that we know that we have, if people started actually like respecting trans people's identity, then yeah, the trans suicide rate probably would go down. Amazing.
We're trying that experiment now. We'll find out whether it works. So far,
it seems like it's working. I don't know. Trans people are probably in a lot better place mentally like nowadays than they were like 50, 60 some odd years ago. I mean, they're actually visible in society nowadays. That's a pretty fucking great improvement.
So far, no evidence.
Have you talked to a group of trans people at all instead of this group of like white people?
I'm more
than
happy to talk to a group of any people who will have me, but usually they protest me.
Well, yeah, gee, I fucking wonder why, when you're literally just refusing to actually listen to any academic consensus on the subject. Actually, I might have to remember this. You'll listen to any group of people. I think I have to hold on to that one. That's actually interesting. I'll hold on to that one. But secondly, right? Yeah, it's no surprise when you enter into these conversations trying to act like you're someone acting in good faith, when it's pretty clear that either you are just an idiot. Like, either you're so much of an idiot that you never do any research on these subjects and find that like most of the academic literature goes against your views. Either you're just so stupid that you don't that you've never been exposed to any of that literature and just pretend it doesn't exist, or you're lying. And I don't know about you, but I'm not sure if I want to promote someone. Like, I don't think it's an unreasonable position for people to want to protest someone who lies about their identities. Maybe it's a crazy thought. Maybe it's a crazy thought in my hand. I don't see that as being unreasonable.
Okay, last question about your Planned Parenthood thing.
Yeah. Everyone laughs. Like, that's the thing, right? It's always like the most amicable audiences.
So why do you think it's not about controlling women's bodies and just about the separate life? Like, after the baby is born, how come when people don't care about them? They don't care where they end up in foster care. They don't care about the mother being poor. Like,
Okay, I do care about the mother being poor. I do care about foster care.
okay, but why don't you advocate for that, though? Because
For what?
Planned Parenthood is supposed to prevent abortions.
Because
Wait, so is this just... Oh, we're changing subjects. Okay, I don't really care about... I mean, like, they're relevant, but they're not relevant for what I want to talk about. All right, well, there you go. I covered the Ben Shapiro destroys transgenderism and pro-abortion arguments. That really hit the way RGR said that.